I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
Read my lips.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
The weapons of mass destruction.
That's right, folks. Don't touch that dial.
All right. No lies here on the Patrick Reagan Show. We don't tolerate that, which is why it's just me on here.
We won't have it. We won't have it.
He doesn't stand for baloney.
We won't stand for it.
Yes, that's why I don't have guests on here, because I don't think they'd have just any kind of fun. It would be more like, instead of an interview, it'd be more like an interrogation, because I would have a lot of questions for these people who are voting for things that they shouldn't be voting for.
I didn't vote for you.
Yeah, I didn't vote for you. We'll have to play that in here sometime. Yeah. See the violence inherent in the system.
Shut up!
And you can see that. Go through the airport. You'll see the violence inherent in the system.
Will you be quiet?
All right.
Patrick Reagan's Theater.
Patrick Reagan's Theater, yeah. That's what we need to do. Just have a segment, Patrick Reagan's Theater. And then most people will be turning that right off. All right. I mentioned it before we went to the break real quick. We were talking about the presidential debates, and I kind of got off a little bit on this UN thing here. But real quickly, what I wanted to say is one thing that grabbed me when I was listening to the sound bites of the debate, because as this audience knows, I don't suffer tyrannical fools gladly. Therefore, I don't waste my time watching two guys debate on the best way to screw over our country. But one thing that caught my attention was both Romney and Obama talking about how we need to be working to end conflicts in other parts of the world, helping the people in other countries achieve freedom. Incidentally, both of these jokers should really look at our own freedom and get that in order before worrying about these other countries. Anyway, I'm not going to waste my audience's time and patience playing the clips from the debate. Suffice to say, they're both saying pretty much the same thing. But I notice every time each of them talks about these two lofty and unconstitutional goals, they don't elaborate on how they're going to achieve them. You know, let's see. Helping people in conflict and gain freedom. Well, that's not done through talking to them. We've seen how well that works. So I guess what they mean is we're going to continue sending our soldiers overseas to die for people who don't really care whether we're there or not. Both these guys talk about how we need to do this and that in other countries, something we clearly should not be doing. We don't like it here, and just this last week I talked about the United Nations sending election observers into this country to monitor for voter fraud. Interestingly enough, I had a follow-up story on that right here. The head of an international body that will monitor the U.S. elections next month protested to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton Wednesday about Texas Attorney General, and he sent them a letter warning that any international observer who approaches a polling station in the state risks criminal prosecution. Thank you, Texas, for backing me up on this. Now, here's a clip from this very show last week. Does this offend anyone besides me? The United Nations has no jurisdiction over us, nor our elections. You want to know what it's like being in another country with the United States sticking its nose in your business? Well, this is it. Now, a letter sent to the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, that's a United Nations office, from the Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott stated, groups and individuals from outside the United States are not allowed to influence or interfere with the election process in Texas. The letter also stated the international representatives are not authorized by Texas law to enter a polling place, and it may be a criminal offense for them to maintain a presence within 100 feet of a polling place's entrance. Failure to comply with these requirements could subject the representatives to criminal prosecution for violating state law. Now, the letter went on to say that the UN may be entitled to its opinions about voter ID laws, but their opinion is legally irrelevant in the United States, where the Supreme Court has already determined that voter ID laws are constitutional. Now, if team members want to learn more about our election processes so they can improve their own democratic systems, well, they welcome that opportunity to discuss the measures Texas has implemented to protect the integrity of elections. However, groups and individuals from outside the United States are not allowed to influence or interfere with the election process in Texas. Thank you, Texas. Now, Representative Connie Mack from Florida released this statement. Every American should be outraged by this news. International monitoring of elections is usually reserved for third world countries, banana republics, and fledgling democracies. The only ones who should ever oversee American elections are Americans. Also, the Speaker of the Alabama House of Representatives, Mike Hubbard, announced plans to introduce legislation that would bar non-U.S. citizens from observing elections in Alabama in the future. He stated if you can't participate in an election in the United States, and if you can't cast a vote in the United States, you really have no business serving as a poll watcher in an election being held in the United States. It is great to see a state standing up to United Nations, even though our federal government won't. Of course, the irony is, as we state these ideas, we are in other countries meddling in their affairs. So, as I stated in the clip that I just played from my last show, if you want to know how other countries feel about the United States and the United Nations sticking its collective noses into our business, this is it. This is how it feels. Do you ever wonder why it is when you hear news reports about this regime or that regime being overthrown? It is so-and-so people are overthrowing this or that minority that was in control. Well, how did this minority get in control? Because the people allowed it. But more importantly, the United States backed whatever faction would agree with us. When we find one, we give them arms and training to stay in power. Now, we are choosing these people's leaders based on what we want, not what they want. And that's how the minority people can maintain control, through having the most guns. Just look at how our government does it in this country. Don't like being searched by the TSA? Don't like losing your rights in the drug war? Don't like losing your rights in the war on terror? Tough. We have the guns, and we wrote the laws which allows us to use them. Don't you ever wonder if government was truly working for the people, was doing what the people wanted, then it wouldn't need to defend itself from its own people. It wouldn't feel the need to disarm its population. Do you ever think about that? If I'm getting along with someone, they are my friend. I have nothing to fear from them. They're not going to do something that would harm me or trample on my rights, because they know I'm going to act in the same way. But the fact that the government in this country is so paranoid and afraid of its own citizens, what they are saying, what they are doing, doesn't that tell you a little something about themselves? Maybe the government is not working for what is best for its citizens. All right, we're up on the last of the show here at the Patrick Riggin Show. I hope I've given you a lot of things to think about this show. And as I said in the first segment, if I made you a little angry, well, that's probably good, because there's something in your life you need to look at. And again, always try to live by your principles. That's what we need to do in this country. If you don't think it's right to be on government aid and be living off another taxpayer, then you shouldn't be doing it. That's basically all there is to it. If everybody did that, we'd get a long way down the road to getting this country turned around. Well, that, and don't worry about what your neighbor's doing. Worry about your business. Anyway, if you want more information about the show, you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show. And be sure and hit that like button on the Facebook there as well. And also on Twitter, we're at Patrick Riggins. And you can also go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. A lot of people get that spelled wrong. It's Riggins, Patrick Riggins Show altogether. And you can get all the old shows and everything. You can also email us at patrickrigginshow@gmail.com. And you can also just call the station. They can get stuff to us as well. Join me next Sunday afternoon when once again we'll talk about freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. This is Patrick Riggins, and we'll see you next Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Have a great week.
Join us again next week for a solid dose of truth on The Patrick Riggins Show. Every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m. Be there.